There's one type of comment I get on my videos more than any other. And it's not about what mic you should buy or how you can raise your rates as a music producer. It's actually something a lot more personal. The number one comment I get is some form of this. I have so many ideas. I know I'm a good producer, but I just can't get my brain to cooperate and finish any songs when I finally have time to work on music. I see lots of folks lamenting wasted potential, mourning time lost to endless revisions, countless demos, and drafts that are missing a second verse, or they just need one more mix before they're perfect. The inability to do things that you already know you can do, things you like doing, things that should be fun. And if that's you, I hear you, and I get it. And hopefully we can work together to understand why so we can start taking some steps to fix it. You're gonna wanna stay to the end of this video, and there's a scientific reason why, I'm not just saying it. And if you do, I'm optimistic that we'll be able to start turning this around. And if you're on your phone right now scrolling social media while listening to this, I encourage you to put it away and just focus on this one task. So let's dig in. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you were doing a mundane task? Maybe folding laundry, maybe walking on the treadmill, maybe it's doing the dishes, whatever it is, and you had a spark of creative inspiration. So you dropped everything, you booked it to your studio, and you worked on that idea until you had a fully fleshed out track. Dirty dishes be damned. Now, let me ask you something else. When is the last time you opened up your recording software or sat down with your instrument only to realize an hour later that you didn't write a single thing that you liked? If you relate more to the second example, you might just have brain rot. Brain rot is defined as the supposed deterioration of a person's mental or intellectual state, especially viewed as the result of overconsumption of material considered to be trivial or unchallenging. The way I like to describe it is like you're walking down a path and just flipping over bricks, looking for something fun or shiny underneath. That next video, that next post, that next story. That might just be the brick that you turn over and it sparks some emotion, gives you a little dopamine. But don't worry, because if it doesn't, there are tons more bricks that you can flip over. So maybe the next one will. Almost like a slot machine for dopamine, right? And if this sounds like you, then you're not alone. Brain rot was actually the 2024 Oxford Word of the Year. And the more I speak with other producers, the more I'm convinced it's getting to all of us. But what if I told you that it's not your fault? That the world is actually designed to make you feel this way? There's a concept in urban design called hostile architecture. It's when cities design spaces specifically to discourage certain behaviors. A common example would be a park bench with an armrest down the middle, so people can't lie down to sleep, or spikes on ledges to stop people from sitting somewhere that they're not supposed to for some reason. They aren't explicitly telling you that you can't sleep or sit there, but it's not something you really even have the option to do. And if you think about it, a lot of digital spaces are built the exact same way, to shuttle you along to the next piece of content. This exact video, the one you're watching right now, if you go skip ahead or your focus drifts to the sidebar, you're shown examples of the next video that you could be watching before you've even finished this one. You've probably also noticed that most apps or websites don't have pages anymore, instead opting for an infinite scroll. So you can't get to the end of Instagram or the bottom of TikTok. It just goes forever. And this behavior that we've all been sort of trained into is having a real effect on our habits, our attention spans, and yes, our music. Because this is exactly how so many of us have started approaching producing. Instead of committing to finishing a song, we chase inspiration by scrolling through sample packs, MIDI packs, and presets, never settling down, never committing to anything. And when we're skipping through YouTube production tutorials instead of just producing like we know how to do, it feels like we're being productive, but we're actually training our brains to be less satisfied with what we create. For so many of us, music creation has become an endless, infinite scroll. Need a kick sample? Instead of picking one, you're encouraged to scroll through thousands of samples on your favorite sample subscription service. Looking for some inspiration? Just keep flipping through those loops and MIDI packs until maybe something sparks an idea. Is this songwriting? Is this producing? Or is it just another form of doom scrolling that we can at least convince ourselves to feel good about? Because at a certain point, we have to ask ourselves, are we actually making music? Or are we just flipping over bricks, hoping to watch a song take shape in front of us if we just flip over enough of them? Now, I know this sounds like a lot of doom and gloom and not a lot of answers, but thankfully there's something that we can do about it. So in 2024, the American Psychological Association wanted to do a study on boredom and how people avoid it. Their goal was to test a hypothesis that while people use apps like YouTube, Netflix, or TikTok to escape boredom, the way they use these apps actually makes them more bored. And guess what? They were pretty much right. So here's how the study worked. Participants were split into two groups and told to watch a series of videos for a few minutes to kill time before doing a task. Now, one group could fast forward and skip around the videos as much as they wanted, while the other group had to sit through each video in order without skipping until it was time to do the task. And at the beginning and the end of the session, the researchers asked both groups how bored they felt. And the results? Well, the group that could skip around often reported feeling more bored at the end. But why? Because when you never commit to paying attention to anything, to seeing a task through, when you're always just flipping over that next brick, you end up feeling less satisfied. But on the flip side, you have the power to put yourself in the second group. All it takes is a bit of unitasking. So the problem with these low friction, low attention, non-interesting things that we consume daily is that they stop us from making our own path, from laying down bricks in the direction we want to travel. And that's because so many of us have simply lost the ability to unitask. According to the Google Books Ngram Viewer, multitasking wasn't really a thing until the 1970s, and something happened around 2001 that apparently made it really popular. But it makes sense. If you close your eyes and imagine someone churning butter in 1880, they don't have AirPods in to catch up on the last episode of their favorite podcast. They're not putting their clothes on the line with Squid Game Season 2 on in the background. And don't confuse this with some return to tradition type deal. Like, I'm not saying things would be better if we just went back to how they did it in the good old days. I'm not that guy. But now, we do so often feel the need to cram every second of our lives with a secondary task. How often do we let our brains just focus on the thing that we're actually doing? I know it seems harmless to consume in this way when it's pointless stuff, like folding clothes or mowing the lawn. But the truth is, our brains operate on momentum. Train yourself to avoid focusing on the work in front of you. That's going to spill over into the work that you like, the work that you want to be doing, the things that you'd like to be able to focus on deeply, aka music. You know that zen feeling you might get when you accidentally leave your headphones inside while you're doing the lawn, so you just start doing it in relative silence? Or how your chores go by so quickly when you don't realize your phone was about to die, so you leave it plugged in the other room? That state of mind, where you're just doing what needs to be done almost automatically, that's the mind space you were in the last time you had that jolt of a sudden idea. The last time you stopped what you were doing to make a voice memo that turned into the melody of your favorite song you ever wrote. So, how do we fix this? The answer is simple, but it is unfortunately not easy. You have to stop doom scrolling and stop multitasking, and that includes in the studio as well. It starts by working to give yourself some attention span back, ditching the 10 hours of podcasts a week, turning off the magnetic comfort show that doesn't let you leave the 10-foot radius of your TV, so you can start reestablishing the boundaries between entertainment and work. When you allow yourself to stop consuming 24/7 and start letting your mind wander instead, that's when the blank lyric sheet or the totally empty DAW project will start to feel like an opportunity to lay down the path towards something you're proud of. And when you're doing things for entertainment, you can let yourself actually be entertained. Watch challenging movies, listen to highly rated classic albums, work on projects, and find hobbies that challenge you to grow as a creative thinker. It starts with allowing yourself to feel friction, to do more critical thinking. It starts with embracing the idea that monotonous work, like figuring out chord progressions, doing sound design, and making a great mix, is actually enjoyable because you saw a process through from the start instead of trying to find the path of least resistance every time. You like producing, you like making music, you like using your brain to make music, but you have to give that brain a chance. You have to give it some silence. You have to let it do its thing, and you have to master unitasking. Because at the end of the day, music should be fun. It should be something that pulls you in, not something that you need to distract yourself from. So if you've been stuck in a cycle of unfinished ideas, if you've been drowning in options, but never finishing anything, let this be a wake-up call. Stop scrolling through presets and samples as a distraction from creating and just make stuff like you know you can. So thanks for watching this video to the end. I hope it inspires you to refocus on the things that you really want to be doing. Now, I normally end my videos with a smooth segue suggesting the next video to watch, but instead, I want you to just close YouTube and make something cool. But if you really don't feel like you're in the headspace to do that, I do have a video called How to Be a Music Producer Without Self-Destructing that digs into some of the more practical, real-world kind of personal stuff that you might need to work out. So check that out right here, and hopefully that will help get you in the headspace for that to be the last video you watch today so you can go make something cool.